So I have to ask, why do you think humans are attracted to this kind of Shakespearean drama? Is there some aspect, we've been talking about the subconscious mind, that pulls us towards the drama, even though the place of mental health is peace?
Yes and yes.
Do you have some of that?
A draw towards drama. Yeah.
If you look at the empirical data.
Yes. I mean, right. If I look at the empirical data, I mean, I think about who I chose to work for as an undergraduate, right? I was barely finished high school, finally get to college, barely, this is really embarrassing and not something to aspire to. I was, thrown out of the dorms for fighting,
Nice.
Barely passed my classes. The girlfriend and I split up. I mean, I was living in a squat, got into a big fight. I was getting in trouble with the law. I eventually got my act together, go back to school, start working for somebody. Who do I choose to work for? A guy who's an ex-Navy guy who smokes cigarettes in the fume hood, drinks coffee, and we're injecting rats with MDMA.
Yeah.
And, I was drawn to like the personality, his energy, but he was a great scientist, worked out a lot on thermal regulation in the brain and more. Go to graduate school, I'm working for somebody and decide that, working in her laboratory wasn't quite right for me. So I'm literally sneaking into the laboratory next door and working for the woman next door because I liked the relationship that she had to a certain set of questions. And she was a kind of a quirky person. And, so drawn to drama, but I like characters. Mm-hmm. I like people that have texture.
Yeah.
And I'm not drawn to raw ambition. I'm drawn to people that seem to have a real passion for what they do and a uniqueness to them that you can I'll just say it how it is. I can feel their heart for what they do, and I'm drawn to that. And that can be good. The same reason I went to work for Ben Barris as a postdoc. It wasn't because he was the first transgender member of the National Academy of Sciences. That was just a feature of who he was. I loved how he loved glia. He would talk about these cells like they were the most enchanting things that he'd ever seen in his life. And I was like, this is like the biggest nerd I've ever met, and I love him. I think I'm drawn to that. This is another thing that Conti elaborates on quite a bit more in the series on mental health coming out, but there are different drives within us. There are aggressive drives, not always for fighting, but for intense interaction. I mean, look at Twitter. Look at people clearly have an aggressive drive. There's also a pleasure drive. Some people also have a strong pleasure drive. They want to experience pleasure through food, through sex, through friendship, through adventure, But I think the Shakespearean drama is the drama of the different drives in different ratios in different people. Mm-hmm. I know somebody and she's incredibly kind, has an extremely high pleasure drive, loves taking great care of herself and people around her through food and through retreats and through all these things, and makes spaces beautiful everywhere she goes, and gifts these things that are just so unbelievably feminine and incredible, these gifts to people, and the kind and thoughtful about what they like. And then, but I would say very little aggressive drive from my read. And then I know other people who just have a ton of aggressive drive and very little pleasure drive. And I think, so there's this alchemy that exists where people have these things in different ratios. And then you blend in, the differences in the chromosomes and differences in hormones and differences in personal history. And what you end up with is a species that creates incredible recipes of drama, but also peace, also relief from drama, contentment. I mean, I realize this isn't the exact topic of the question, but someone I know very dearly, actually an ex-girlfriend of mine, long-term partner of mine, sent me something recently. And I think it hit the nail on the head, which is that ideally for a man, they eventually settle where they find and feel peace, where they feel peaceful, where they can be themselves and feel peaceful. Now, I'm sure there's a equivalent or mirror image of that for women, but this particular post that she sent was about men. And I totally agree. And so it isn't always that we're seeking friction, but for periods of our life, we seek friction, drama, adventure, excitement, fights, and doing hard things. And then I think at some point, I'm certainly coming to this point now where it's like, yeah, that's all great and checked a lot of boxes, but had a lot of close calls, flew really close to the sun on a lot of things with life and limb and heart and spirit. And some of, people close to us didn't make it. And sometimes not making it means the career they wanted went off a cliff, or their health went off a cliff, or their life went off a cliff. But I think that there's also the Shakespearean drama of the characters that exit the play and are living their lives happily in the backdrop. It just doesn't make for as much entertainment.